I will call this Thursday, October 23rd special meeting of the Knox County Commission of Order. All three commissioners are present, so I will do what we always do. First thing, I will open the floor to any public comment. Is there anyone who wishes to address the Knox County Commission? Seeing as there's none, I will move on to the first item on our agenda, an action item, which is an act to move forward with the process of implementing an interim budget for fiscal year 2026. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Before we vote on it, I would like to have some discussion, if anybody doesn't mind. As the chair of the Knox County Commission, or as the Knox County Commission in general, it is our responsibility to look out for the fiscal welfare of the county. As you know, we have a budget process which is spelled out in our Knox County Charter about how we usually do it, which includes the budget committee, a series of hearings, public hearings, and then submission of the budget when it's finalized to the towns for them to develop their tax commitments based on what that budget is. There's been a snafu this year. We have 9 members of the budget committee, and this year only in hand that have been elected are 4. Normally, we go on the assumption that we can appoint somebody to fill the empty seats. The problem is our charter has it spelled out that only a quorum of 5 members can add new members to the budget committee. So only having 4, there is no duly constituted budget committee to elect new members to the budget committee, so we have a non-existent budget committee. The fact that we don't have a budget committee means that they can't vote on the budget, and if they can't vote on the budget, the commission can't accept that budget. So we're looking at a year that we cannot adopt a new budget. There is in our charter and in state law the ability for the commission to adopt an interim budget. That interim budget is limited in spending to the amount of money that we spent last year, which means not necessarily that there's no tax increase. It just means that the bottom line will be the same as last year. To that end, we are turning as a commission to the administration to develop a new budget based with last year's numbers, trying to, as I said, work out a budget that includes this year's needs with last year's money. For most departments, it's going to require some sacrifice. We hope to do that evenly across all of the departments, the same amount. How we make that happen without it affecting individual employees too much, we're not exactly sure. We look to see. If you looked at this year's proposed budget, most departments weren't going up more than a couple of %. So it's very possible we can find a way to make that work. An interim budget doesn't mean we spend exactly the same amount of money, exactly the same places as we did last year. There is some room to move around, which is why we're going through this process, so that everybody is informed as to what the budget's going to look like, what that budget's going to look like for each department. As it stands right now, I'm expecting that almost all of the departments can make it work. It's not going to be pretty. Our goal at the end is equity for everybody, especially the people who work here, as well as providing the same level of service that the county does in all the departments that we have. So for most departments, it's going to require work, but I think it's something we can easily do. There are a few departments which were going to be the drivers of what we were looking at for an increase next year. Those needs, just because we don't have the money, don't go away. The communications is going to be much more expensive than it was budgeted for, and last year's amount of money for the jail is not enough money for the jail to operate. So it's going to require, especially in those two departments, a lot more creativity than we've used over the last few years. We can't just do what we've been doing and make this work. It may be a good impetus to get some new things done that we've been talking about over the last couple of years, and so we'll see where it goes. But part of this process is getting as many people involved as possible. As we have these meetings about the different departments, I hope that some members, if not all the members of the Budget Committee, as well as the proposed members of the Budget Committee, will meet with us and we can move forward. Another sort of a sideline to all of this is how do we reconstitute the Budget Committee. Hopefully we don't have to wait till next November's election, because if we have to wait to next November's election for new members to run, that means we miss even next year's budget cycle. And that's really, that's beyond the pale of what's possible. So we may be looking at a charter amendment, to the Knox County Charter Amendment in next June, which will allow the Budget Committee the opportunity to appoint new people to the Budget Committee even in the middle of the year, even with fewer than a full quorum. There. I think that's everything I need to say, so I will turn it to the other commissioners if anybody has anything they would like to add about this process.
I'll add one thing in my conversations. I've always felt that people are more important than things. So that's, from direction from myself would be that we take care of the people of the county, because that's more important than new pencils or new computers or whatever we're planning to buy. So that would be, I think, the most important thing that we can put out there.
I'm not sure I can say anything that would improve on what Mark just said. I think that's really true. And I've had the honor of meeting so many of you all in the last 9 or so, 10 months that I've been doing this gig, and it is really hard to see all of you and know that we are going to have to make some hard choices because you are valued, all of you, and your contributions are valued to, and we know you give a lot to the county. So we want to make you all whole to the degree that we can. So I think that's the biggest goal.
Oh, I have one other thing about process. In the charter, it spells out when we have to have the budget and when we have to have it submitted to the towns. We will try to stick as near as we can to those deadlines so that the towns do know exactly what we're asking for from taxes. It'll probably be a little bit different than last year just because of valuations and changes like that, so that everybody knows what the taxes will be. The bottom line will be essentially the same. How it's spread out and how it's done, I don't know. Those are details, legal details, liability details that the administration will work on, and we will at the end, the commission will approve this interim budget so that we all know what we're voting on and what we all have to live with. With that said, for further discussion, we still haven't voted on this act, but I'll hold off on that. I will turn it over to the county administrator if she would like to weigh in on exactly what she sees the process being.
Yeah, thank you. There's a lot of things up in the air right now. What I can say is we have the Attorney General's office working with the Secretary of State on our behalf to figure out options for elections next year, with the ultimate goal to make this the involved, transparent process that it should be. Until we kind of have some of that legal guidance, that's going to really direct this messaging and what will come next year, when we'll expect to, especially for our budget committee members, when they may be able to join, things of that nature. I am hoping to have something this week so that we can continue the messaging into next week. So they're right in our back pocket. We've been talking to them almost daily this week. They're both scratching their head as well. So this is a very unique thing for a county. Our charter and Title 30A are basically conflicting with each other and saying that you cannot move forward. So we have to get creative with a workaround, which is why we're seeking the guidance of the state, because they would need to kind of support that election. So if we can have it earlier, great, we can get some business done. If not, we'll have to figure out, working with the state auditor potentially, to see if we can adjust some deadlines to have a successful 2027 budget process. This is obviously the least ideal situation for not only all of us in our first year here, but also for our departments and our employees, as well as our citizens and our towns. But I'm as optimistic as I can be that we can make this work as a team if we're collaborative, communicative, transparent with all of our stakeholders. We can get through this. We've gotten through worse, I believe. And I'll just kind of end with, while this process has been or proven to be very complex, our goal is simple. It's to protect the integrity of this budget process and uphold transparency to continue to build that public trust. So as long as we fall in the lines of that, I think it will be, I guess I will say. So as we learn next steps, we will continue the messaging. I'm anticipating seeing a lot of public meetings with the commission just like this to talk about timelines and deadlines and scheduling and when our stakeholders will hear about things. So all of these moving forward will be in public. We've already messaged some of our towns and budget committee members just to anticipate today's discussion and vote. We'll do another messaging depending on the vote today. And that will continue throughout the end of this process. We also have a department manager meeting tomorrow morning so that we can collectively get together, put our brains together, and figure out how we can, to your point, Chair, make this as equitable as possible.
Other questions, other discussion?
One of the things that I'm curious about is maybe you could speak about the ability for the budget to change for some of the departments within last year's. What the chair said is the departments will have to work for 26 needs based on 25 funds. Do you have any discussion about how they may share or work with each other?
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of ideas. I can share some of them. We have larger departments, we have smaller departments, so finding equitably how to work within those. Cutting 10% across the board is not an option. So we're looking at kind of that, but the shell game, as we're calling it, right? It can admin fund some of what we need for deeds or what have you. Those are kind of some legal questions that we're kind of following up on. We do know it's not line by line, we're not tied to our lines, but what are we tied to? We have a lot of unique departments here, the airport, communications, corrections. Funding and revenue sources kind of vary in those, so we're trying to nail down those details so that we're prepared for when we sit down with the department managers, right? Tomorrow's kind of a kickoff to, here's what we're deciding now, but we kind of need those parameters to.
The reason I asked the question is I just want to make everything transparent as possible, that things will change and we'll do the best to take care of all the departments, because there will be changes. It will just be with 25 funds. And there's some question about funds and some departments make money and how that involves. So there's a lot of moving parts that we're still working on, and I wanted to make sure that everybody understood that. So there was more information coming out of this meeting as best we're starting to understand.
Yeah, I mean, the last year's budget, we had different revenue sources, we had different grants, we had different undesignated fund balances. This year looks completely different from all of that. So how do we navigate that? what is exactly the same and what are we able to get creative with, right, or reevaluate things. So that's most of the guidance which we're working on so that we can present that budget, as well as kind of some of the process guidance for when we need to get things out, who needs to be notified. I think to your point, Chair, earlier, we are going to try and mirror this as much as possible. We are going to have as many public meetings as we can to discuss the budget. We're going to have a public hearing still at the end to formally present it to everybody. Right? We'll try and mirror as much as we can that seems appropriate.
Chair, I wonder if you're open to, we have so many county employees here. I wonder if you're open to questions from county employees.
I'm just going to get to that.
Oh, okay.
As part
Sorry.
of the next part,
Okay,
to make
sorry.
sure
Didn't
everybody
mean to
here
jump
had
back.
to say and it was understood. And leading into that is, for this to work, we have to rely on department managers who know their department as to how they best think we can do this. Us sitting here, or even the county administrator, and telling everybody how they're going to do it is not a good business model. So leaning on our department heads and knowing that they know what they're doing and expressing our faith in them too is what we have to do. And so we're counting on them too, which leads into...
Can I also add on to that I've already heard several county employees coming up with creative solutions. And so even though your department heads are going to be the point person for the county administrator, if you have ideas, I think we want all the good ideas. So I just wanted to add that to what the chair said.
And there are commitments we have made when we talk about funding sources. There are expenses that we have through union contracts and a number of other things that we have agreed to that we have to honor too, as near as we can, which does create certain limitations within which we have to work. And so, following on Commissioner Hines' suggestion, amongst all of the people who are here, is there anybody who would like to add or have a question?
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Please.
You had said something about we have to operate on 2025 what we spent, and then you also said in 2025's budget. So is it we operating on what we spent in 2025 or what we budgeted for in 2025?
Yes. That is part of when the administrator says she's dealing with the Secretary of State and the state auditor on a regular basis to find out exactly what the law means. Our understanding is there isn't a lot of case law, there aren't a lot of legal decisions about what the wording means. And so we're hoping to get some kind of clarification about what that really does mean before we adopt this final budget.
Perfect, thank you.
Unfortunately, it is a process that has not been used a lot. And so we're right in the middle of, it's not the kind of groundbreaking you want to be involved in, but it is new stuff that we're working in.
Understood, thank you.
Basically, my understanding is our particular charter is unique to Maine and the situation we're in, not allowing us to nominate board members if we're under the number. So in every conversation we've had so far, this is new to the Attorney General's office, Secretary of State's office. So the whole state is sort of looking at this as like an interesting situation, and let's work through it and let's look at the law as carefully as possible. But that's why it's taking some time, because nobody has done this before. Nobody has had to deal with this, which is unfortunate. But sometimes when people write charters and things like that, you can't fully predict the ramifications of what you're doing until sometime in the future. And this is an interesting opportunity for us all.
Any other questions from people? Sure.
Hi, Mike Keating from Miles. I just received the email that said that due to lack of elected candidates in districts 1, 3, 5, and 7, that this budget process was not able to continue. Can you explain when that was realized that shortfall was happening in elected candidates, and what can we do next time to make sure that this does not happen again?
Yeah, that sort of gets to part of the question of what is the timing involved in all of this. There are 9 districts, well, really 8 districts, because Rockland has 2 members on the budget committee, and so 4 people were elected the year before and continued to serve. And so we needed 5 different people to run to fill all those seats in last November, which, as you know, when you run for election, goes through the whole, first you have to have your signed petition to get on the ballot, and then whoever wins the election. Those 5 candidates did not show up. So we did not have 5 people who ran. We knew that there was going to be a few people who didn't run. There's a sort of a cross between there. Nobody notified the county commission that there was nobody running in those districts. Part of the question is, how much responsibility do we have to make sure that there's somebody running in each one of those districts? And it appears that if we want to keep the county government working with this particular charter, it is fully our responsibility. We didn't know that. We also didn't know that what we've done in the past, where if there's a vacancy, there's a mechanism in the charter, the vacancy calls for a member of the public to come forward. We usually allow a town to nominate somebody, and then the budget committee elects that person, and then that person is approved by the commission after that. In this case, because there was not a quorum, and our wording in our committee, in our charter, is that if there's no quorum, they cannot add anybody new. We didn't realize that that quorum recognition would keep us from appointing anybody else to fill those vacant seats. So it really wasn't until we were looking at this fall's meeting schedule and who's going to be on the budget committee, we looked at it and sent the question to the Secretary of State about how do we appoint those people, and the Secretary of State said, oh, you can't appoint people. Because you don't have a quorum, you can't do it. So the mechanism forward is for us to understand that this is the problem we got into and not let it happen again, for us or the towns to make sure that we find somebody to run for all of those budget committee seats. Or what we're also looking at, I think I mentioned this, is looking at amending the charters so that we don't need a full quorum, they just need a majority of the members to appoint somebody. I think Commissioner Ratner pointed to this. Almost every county in Maine has slightly different rules about what a budget committee is. Some, like Knox, have a budget committee that has voting authority over the budget. Some county commissions have, or budget committees, are purely advisory, so this wouldn't be a problem. I think there are even some county commissions, counties that don't have budget committees. Not every county in Maine has a charter. Some work purely under statutory law, and some of them have charters too. So it's a hodgepodge, and we didn't know about it until we knew about it, basically, unfortunately.
I can add some perspective. We were aware that there were 3 members. We had candidates for all but 3 positions that we were aware of. We didn't, and so we thought that there was having the towns nominate people. I worked at Ed Work getting 2 of those positions filled. I worked on one of those positions filled with a select board member, and the select board in that town found a member to fill that spot, and he was actually here for the budget meeting last week when we discovered this. In Camden, when I was on the select board, we've seen, and I think we've all seen, that fewer and fewer people have the time to donate for public service. We're getting fewer and fewer people running for select boards, running for school committees, and especially running for election committees. In Camden, basically the process of electing the budget committee members has gone by the board, and the select board has the ability to nominate people and to select them, which has been happening for a number of years now. So unfortunately, we were under the assumption that we found the members, we went out and searched for members to fill the budget committee, so we had a full 9 members. And then only then did we find out that for perhaps the first time, and who knows if this has happened before and it was never recognized, that we only had 4 voting members on the charter, on the budget committee at that point. And by being as precisely worded as the charter is, and by us following the procedures that legally are mandated, we did go to the Secretary of State and the Attorney General and are following the law instead of just sort of, I wouldn't be surprised if in past situations around the country, I'm not saying anything happened here, that people have just said, well, let's just get somebody on the board and let's just move on. We're following the letter of the law exactly as we should.
And I'll just add, I think that speaks to the competence of our staff who really followed every crumb on this issue to figure out what we needed to do and what we couldn't do. So lots of gratitude out to the staff who have spent a lot of time already just in the last week or 2 trying to figure this out.
Does that answer the question?
Yes, thank you.
Other questions? Any other questions or observations? If not, I'll hand it to the administrator in case she has anything she would like to add.
I don't believe so. I think we hit the major points. I appreciate you, Commissioner Ratner, stating the last thing you stated is, yes, we want to follow the law, even though it's not fun and not ideal. That's the right thing to do. We're going to continue doing the right thing for the right reasons in this county. Tomorrow I'll dive in with my internal team, obviously, and make sure they all are supported throughout this process. But also externally, just a note for everybody that we will continue all of this messaging. They will be looped into all of these decisions and timelines, and we will continue to over-communicate, if you will, on the status of what's going on, hopefully weekly, until we kind of have some direction. But I appreciate everybody's understanding to this point, and there's a lot more to come.
Anything else on this item? If nothing further, all those in favor? 3 in favor, none opposed. We will move forward on this process. Is there anything else to come before the commission? If not, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Usually I like to discuss next meetings at this point. We don't know what the calendar is going to bring, but I have a feeling there will be a fair number of meetings, probably daytime meetings with department heads, and a number like we usually do with the budget committee, evening members so that citizens can partake. But I don't know what those dates are yet. So if there's nothing further, all those in favor of adjournment? 3 in favor, none opposed. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Can I just give you both of the budget process?
Yes.